sense how to put the things right, which can actually put the things in the right perspective. Because as they all say, that one may have the knowledge, but the manner in which a person, more so to a bench, is the most paramount thing. Mr. Joshi is known for his knowledge in the field of service law, labor laws, civil law, and constitutional law. And once we speak of service law, I would rather say service law, labor law, and constitutional law are invariably quite interwoven with each other, because first and the foremost thing is that the protection granted under the Constitution of India, the way it is protected and what rights are carved out, maybe it is the labor law or it's the service law, they all germane from the Constitution of India. Amongst us, we also have Mr. P.K. Malhotra, former Secretary Law. We are pleased that he has joined us. It only shows his humility that he has joined with us. Welcome, Mr. Gautam Joshi and Mr. P.K. Malhotra. Needless to add that while we take names, while welcoming them special, it's not that they are special, but it's only that they are guests within the family, but are members of our family itself. But they are the keynote speakers and giving insights. And Mr. P.K. Malhotra also had given his insights on one of our webinars. That is the only subtle difference between all the other participants, myself, and these keynotes. Today's topic is dismissal, removal, or discharge from service. The Constitution law protects us in its, and what are the protections provided under the Constitution. That bird eye view, Mr. Gautam Joshi, the senior advocate, has consented to give the insights. But while we were logging, I was just seeing Mr. Joshi. Probably he has just done his case right away. He has come to the form. That he also believes in our process of thought that sharing is caring. And during these pandemic days, there couldn't be a better way to share the knowledge. But as they say that every adversity brings something special. And during these adversities, at least I can vouch upon that, along with the participants who have been following us, that is Beyond Law CLC. That they say knowledge is no barrier, but we never thought that either there could be a process of virtual courts or a virtual platform where we could connect with each other, we could share things, share ideas. And this is a classic case that we are all connected on a platform to imbibe knowledge, share knowledge, and that's the way to move forward. And over to you, Mr. Gautam Joshi. We are all enamored for the fact that you have accepted our invite and also accepted the fact that you share your knowledge and insights, what you have gained in so many years of practice as a student of law, law student, and as an advocate. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope I am audible to all. Before I start, I must say.
So it's audible, but I think I will check it out. Sir, probably you have switched off the video.
No, my video is on. I am unmute. Fortunately, because of this,
I will check it on my monitor.
Because of this court
Yes,
proceedings, I have learned this basics of online conducting of matters. Though you may say that I am a sort of a mentally retarded so far as these computers are concerned. I use it as a dignified typewriter, that's all. But I hope I am audible to all.
Yes, sir.
Like Mr. Chatrat.
Audible, sir?
Like Mr. Chatrat said, I never knew about myself before he completed his speech. I didn't know that I knew so much about the law, procedure, and the court craft. But anyway, thanks. It always helps somebody to gain at least weight, if not anything else. So before we start the current topic, I'm given to understand that we are supposed to discuss about the constitutional aspects of dismissal, removal, reduction, discharge, mainly termination of service by way of penalty or by way of termination simpliciter, which is disguised as a simple termination, though it is penal in nature. Before going to those punishment aspects, we must understand the basics, that how does the constitution come in. There are two kinds of services. As we all know, private employment stands on a different footing. There are judgments of the Honorable Supreme Court, say UPSC versus Jayantilal Waghela, and many judgments which say that there is a distinction between private service and public service. Private employer can choose anybody he wants to employ. No doubt, while terminating the services, they must comply with the basic principles of natural justice. But so far as the public service is concerned, there again, there are two kinds of public services. One, public service in respect of civil servants as we know them, like civil services under the state governments or union territories or Union of India, as the case may be. And on other hand, the services of the employees who are engaged by agencies and instrumentalities of the state, which are state within the meaning of Article 12. But those employees are not given the guarantee which is conferred on the civil servants under Article 311 of the Constitution of India. That's a slightly different aspect. But now what we are concerned, or what we will be discussing, is the relations of civil servants with their employer, which is Union of India, that is central government, or the state government, or the municipal corporations, or the panchayats, as the case may be. Now, so far as the state itself is concerned, state must have the rules, statutory rules, or rules under Article 309. Recently, we have come across number of instances where the state governments or even the central government has started a new way of engaging people. Even during this pandemic, we have come across cases that, say, public hospitals, sorry for the detract, but today itself in Indian Express of Ahmedabad edition, there is a photograph showing that drainage workers of one municipality of Gujarat, they are on strike. Why? They are not paid wages by their employer, who is a contractor, and they are all engaged by an outsourcing agency. Now, the first thing that comes to our mind is that if it is a municipality, if it is a local body, can it outsource a fundamental or basic functions to some outside agency which engages people as they like? We do not know whether those safety measures are being followed or not, because these outsourcing agencies are like those call centers. They create a wall between the consumer and the original company which supplies the goods or services. It is not really for the purpose of serving the people, but creating a wall between the supplier or the manufacturer and the consumer. Outsourcing agencies, in pandemic situation, the government hospitals, say in Gujarat also, we have found that the municipal hospitals, they are engaging people through manpower suppliers. This is a very good American firm or very good American term which is being used, manpower suppliers. but can you engage people on contract through some outside agency while performing your statutory duties? These are various things which need to be gone into. But right now we are concerned with the disciplinary action. This becomes relevant while discussing these issues, because once you engage a person through an outside agency, the state is not an employer. State will simply say that we don't want this person, you terminate the service of that person, you deal with him in the manner in which you like, and that's how the things take place. So that is one aspect which is required to be addressed in the present situation, particularly when people are facing a lot of difficulties. Now, you don't add a further difficulty in the matter of employment as well. So this is one aspect. When we talk about disciplinary action, how does the whole thing start? Because dismissal, removal, or compulsory retirement, or punishment by way of discharge simpliciter, these are the consequences. How does the whole thing start? We must understand that. What is the starting point? For the purpose of doing something or taking a disciplinary action, one need to first come to a prima facie conclusion that a misconduct is committed by a person. A civil servant, while performing his duties, does something which amounts to misconduct. Now, what is misconduct? There are various judgments on this aspect. Unbecoming of a civil servant, unbecoming of a government servant is one thing which is generally mentioned in the show cause notice or the charge sheet, as the case may be. Now, what is unbecoming of a government servant? To failure to maintain the highest standards of integrity. This is one. But say a person, he is given a particular duty, he doesn't do his best. The Supreme Court had to address this issue. In the case of Union of India versus J. Ahmed, which is reported in 1979, 2 SCC page 786, the Honorable Supreme Court held that failure to achieve the highest standards of efficiency is not a misconduct. So anything an employer feels that is a misconduct doesn't become a misconduct. A police officer performs his duty to the best of his capacity. But suppose there are certain circumstances, not only police officer, any other person, any other officer, any other employee, because of the circumstances which are beyond his control, he is unable to achieve the highest standards of efficiency. He is good, he is okay. But can you say that because he does something which is expected of him, you must do your best? That is not a misconduct. That is failure to satisfy your own standard or benchmark that you have prescribed for yourself. It doesn't become misconduct. So failure to achieve higher standards of efficiency is not a misconduct. Likewise, in many cases, the courts have come across cases that a lapse which is not in the nature of negligence, it cannot be considered as a misconduct. And even if it is so, it doesn't result into a major punishment of termination of service, either by way of removal, dismissal, discharge, whatever name you may give. When we come to the question of punishment, we will certainly discuss that aspect, which is a very good term used while throwing out a person: compulsory retirement by way of punishment. What does a person get by way of compulsory retirement, or what he doesn't get, is also a vexed question. We will enter into that while going to that. But first of all, the first and foremost thing which is required to be addressed by the employer, that is the management, that is the government, is to see that a person has committed a misconduct. For the purpose of initiating an inquiry, charge sheet is a must. What is the date of the charge sheet? What is the date of the initiation of the inquiry? This also becomes relevant in many cases. Date of initiation of the inquiry becomes relevant in the cases in which the person has already retired from service and the inquiry is subsequently initiated against him in respect of the charges which are leveled against him for something what he had done when he was in service. So the date of signing of the charge sheet or the date of issuance of the charge sheet, not the signing of the charges, but the issuance of the charge sheet is the date of initiation of the inquiry. When the charge sheet is issued to a person, it is a must that charges are specific and they are not vague in nature. Simply by saying that your conduct is unbecoming of a government servant is not enough. You must point out that your act X, Y, Z, 1, 2, 3 are such that they are unbecoming of a government servant, or that your failure to perform your duty in X, Y, Z manner. So these are the charges which must be specific. There are judgments to the effect, and we did not go into that. They are available at a click of a button. That charges must be specific and they need not be vague. They should not be vague. Now, second thing, after the charge sheet, naturally the delinquent is going to reply. On the basis of the reply, the inquiry officer, now here also there are two aspects. Almost all service laws, they provide, while taking into consideration the report of the inquiry officer. Generally, the first sentence in all such rules is that when the disciplinary authority himself is not the inquiry officer, rule 1, 2, 3, 4, meaning thereby the disciplinary authority himself can always conduct a departmental inquiry. It is inbuilt in all these service rules. It can always conduct a departmental inquiry by himself itself. And it is only when the departmental inquiry is not conducted by the disciplinary authority himself. Generally, in the government service, they appoint inquiry officer, presenting officer, and the delinquent is either entitled to defend himself or through somebody, departmental assistance. Lawyer, whether he is required to be engaged or not, that is also one aspect which is now dealt with by the Honorable Supreme Court by number of judgments. Latest in point of time is 2015 Supreme Court, which says that if the government is represented by a legally trained mind, or the issues are criminal in nature which require legal mind, and the person can show that I am a layman, I am not in a position to defend myself, then there are certain cases where the permission is granted to engage an advocate or a lawyer. So the second thing, charge sheet, reply to the charge sheet, and third comes evidence. What is evidence which is required to be led before the inquiry officer? Unlike criminal trial, what is required to be shown to the inquiry officer is by way of evidence is preponderance of probability of a person having committed a particular act or misconduct. Now, what is preponderance of probabilities? Criminal trial, everything must be proved to the hilt. Action and the person. The link between the action and the person must be established beyond all reasonable doubts. Then the court is going to consider whether that particular act is an offense within the meaning of the act, within the meaning as defined by the Indian Penal Code, or whatever code or whatever statute under which he is being tried. Unlike that, in the departmental proceedings, all that is required to be brought before the inquiry officer is the material and supporting evidence. Suppose the material is placed before the inquiry officer and no oral evidence is laid. Can the inquiry officer proceed on the basis of the material? This question was answered by the Honorable Supreme Court in one case, Rup Singh Negi versus Punjab National Bank, I suppose, 2009 2 SCC page 570, that mere production of documents is not sufficient. Somebody has to enter the witness box, somebody has to depose that and prove those documents. This is one case which, in the present circumstances, I must say that almost all doors are closed so far as the employees are concerned. These judgments, there are some judgments which are like silver lining, which are available to the employees. Otherwise, the moment the charge sheet is issued, it is almost written on the wall that the person would be thrown out or some punishment would be imposed. Because the court doesn't go into the merits of the misconduct, court doesn't go into the procedural irregularities which are not fatal to the case. Even when the procedural irregularities are proved, the proceedings are vitiated from that stage onwards, and the inquiry authority, that is the disciplinary authority, is permitted to proceed from that stage onwards. So generally speaking, the judgments in present scenario are against the employees. There are very few judgments which are of silver lining, like Union of India versus J. Ahmed, like this Roop Singh Negi, that some scope is open. But that again is a procedural irregularity, and in some cases the court may vitiate the inquiry from that stage and permit the department to proceed from that stage onwards. When we come to appreciation of evidence, again there are series of judgments which say that the inquiry officer must base his findings on the evidence which is laid and must not consider the material which is outside the inquiry. In another word, his personal knowledge cannot be brought into play. Any other document which comes to the custody, which comes to the notice of the inquiry, outside the inquiry, cannot be considered, and he must base his findings on the material which is placed on record by way of evidence. Evidence not as in criminal trial, but as in civil court, preponderance of probability, that there is a fair chance of this thing having happened, or there is a fair chance of this person having committed this act. So these are various things. While conducting the departmental inquiry, the inquiry officer must analyze each and every evidence, must record his finding in respect of each and every charge specifically by taking into consideration the evidence which is before him, and arrive at a finding whether the charges are proved or not. When it comes to proving of the charge, naturally he files a report holding that all the charges or some of the charges are proved, and then it is for the disciplinary authority to act on it. Question arises when the inquiry officer arrives at a finding that the charges are not held to be proved. Then there are two options available to the disciplinary authority. One, accept the inquiry report and exonerate the employee. Two, inquiry officer's findings are not accepted by the disciplinary authority. At that stage, two options are available to the disciplinary authority. Remit the case back to the inquiry officer for recording fresh evidence by recording disagreement, or disagree with the inquiry officer and record his own finding stating the valid, just and proper reasons why does he disagree with the findings of the inquiry officer. There again, a famous judgment of Yoginath Bagde versus High Court of Judicature at Bombay, it calls out the ratio. What is the stage of disagreement? How is the disciplinary authority supposed to act? Record positive findings of misconduct. Call upon the delinquent that these are the tentative findings which I have recorded as a disciplinary authority, disagreeing with the findings of the inquiry officer, and what I have to say about this, giving opportunity while recording the finding of guilt, because there is a logic behind it. The inquiry officer also calls upon the delinquent that this is the material against you and what have you to say. Likewise, the inquiry officer, when he does it, it is equally mandated on the disciplinary authority that if you want to disagree with the findings, you must give an opportunity at that stage. Once the delinquent answers that, there are two other aspects also. While agreeing or disagreeing with the inquiry officer's finding, in many cases, Public Service Commission is also consulted. Now, the opinion of the Public Service Commission is also relevant. There was a fluid situation whether the opinion of the Public Service Commission is relevant or not, and whether it is required to be furnished to the delinquent or not. Incidentally, two cases went from the Gujarat High Court itself, and the Honorable Supreme Court held that it is a must, you must furnish copy of the Public Service Commission's report or opinion to the delinquent, because it is also a material which is being considered by the disciplinary authority while imposing the punishment. Fundamental principle is whatever you consider, you provide. On that ground, the report of the or the opinion of the Public Service Commission is also made available to the delinquent. Then comes the question of punishment, either on the basis of the inquiry officer's report holding the delinquent guilty, disciplinary authority agreeing with it, or inquiry officer holding the delinquent, exonerating of the charges, finding that he is not guilty of the allegations leveled against him, disciplinary authority, after giving opportunity on the basis of the tentative findings, recording the guilt, finding of guilt, again at the question of punishment. In the case of Muhammad Ramzan, this question was debated, that whether to give the inquiry officer's finding or not, because second show cause notice was taken away by way of the 42nd Amendment. The question arose that when the second show cause notice is not required to be given, why should the delinquent be given copy of the inquiry officer's report? The Honorable Supreme Court held that it is not a question of what punishment, but why punishment. Inquiry officer's finding, there is a possibility that the delinquent deals with each and every finding on the basis of his report or his representation, which may satisfy the disciplinary authority that yes, the inquiry officer has faulted in recording a finding of guilt. This happens, of course, in a 1 in a million case, but we cannot rule out that. Because our experience over a period of time is that when the inquiry officer has found the delinquent guilty of the charges, probably we need Dharmaraj Yudhishthir to come to a finding as a disciplinary authority to disagree with the findings of the inquiry officer, accepting the explanation of the delinquent to hold that no, you are not guilty and I'll exonerate you. Those days are not here, so we have to forget about it. But there is one chance in a million that this may happen. So there is, at the stage of hearing the delinquent, after giving him opportunity to make a representation on the inquiry officer's report. Then question comes as to punishment. Insofar as the punishment is concerned, there are again various judgments. There are many cases where similarly situated persons who are subjected to similar charge sheet, different punishments are imposed. There are few judgments which comes to our help in support of the proposition that in a similar misconduct, similar punishment may be imposed, that is parity of punishment. One judgment which is recent in point of time is EIR 2019 Supreme Court 2075, where the parity of punishment question is considered by the Honorable Supreme Court. And another judgment which I could come across was 2006 6 SCC page 548, that when the misconduct is same, the punishment also has to be same, and there cannot be different punishments for the same misconduct in respect of the same charges. But there is one judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court reported in 2007 4 SCC page 669, which says that when the disciplinary authority finds that a different misconduct is committed, that is the degree of misconduct is different in respect of two different employees, of course the disciplinary authority can always impose two different kinds of punishment, one lighter on the person whose role is not as serious as the person who is subjected to a major punishment or a stricter or a harsher punishment. So these are the cases of punishment. Now, so far as the punishment is concerned, there are 2 or 3 nomenclatures which are given. Dismissal from service, which is considered to be the harshest. Removal from service. There are certain cases where a person is removed from service in early stage of service, so that it may not be considered as an embargo or impediment in getting a fresh service. He is removed from service. Those phrases are used in those orders that it will not come as an impediment or embargo in getting a fresh service. Third punishment is compulsory retirement. Now, compulsory retirement and dismissal, if we go to the consequences, they remain the same. Because compulsory retirement also doesn't entitle an employee to get anything. We are talking about public service, 309 rules, those services. In civil services, the person who is compulsorily retired is entitled to a compassionate pension to the extent of 33%, that too at the discretion of the disciplinary authority. He has to beg for it. If the disciplinary authority finds that he is okay, I'll give it to him, he may be given 33% compassionate pension. Otherwise, compulsory retirement doesn't entitle a person to get anything. Now, a vexed question may come up is to simple discharge. A person is discharged from service not as a result of disciplinary proceedings, but as a termination simpliciter or simple discharge. A person was reverted from his original post, and in the case of 1976 1 SCC, I think it is Swarup something, 1976 1 SCC 236, the Honorable Supreme Court, after criticizing, I am using the word criticizing the earlier judgments, it held that if you come across an order which is pure and simple termination or pure and simple reversion of a person who doesn't have a right to hold the post, don't go searching for the motivating reasons behind it. Read the order, find out whether he has a right to hold the post or not. If the order is not stigmatic, don't go searching for reasons, don't go searching for motivating factors. But fortunately, subsequent judgments, that is 2003 3 SCC 263, it is case of Matthew Thomas versus Kerala State Civil Supply Corporation. There, the Supreme Court again reiterated the cases of motive and foundation. If the termination order is used as a facade just to cover up the probable or possible disciplinary action, or doing away of the disciplinary action, basing the action based on the allegations, but not writing in so many words and using it as a facade, then the court must come down, lift the veil, and mold the proper relief. That is 2003 3 SCC 263. Subsequently, also the Supreme Court reiterated in the case of State of Haryana versus Satyendra Singh Rathod, 2005 7 SCC 518. So, while arguing the case, it is the duty of the lawyer to find out foundation and motive. If we are able to take or make our point reach home, that this may be a case of a simple termination, reading the order as it is. But if we lift the veil, it is, say in this case, Matthew's case, there were a lot of allegations against the person. He answered them. And then suddenly, by way of a termination simpliciter, he was thrown out. The Supreme Court said nothing doing. When you level so many allegations, you have no right to throw away a person like that. And lifting the veil, the Honorable Supreme Court considered the case accordingly. So, while considering the cases of simple termination, no doubt it becomes an uphill task. One must work very hard to find out and produce before the court the material or the circumstances, the chain of events which led to the so-called action of termination simpliciter. That looks up because of X, Y, Z incidents. I was given a show cause notice. I answered it. And in spite of the fact, now what is sought to be, I am being subjected to a case of simple termination. My juniors are retained. I have been serving for so many years. There is nothing against me except this chapter. And this is being used only as a tool. It is the foundation. And therefore, please grant me the relief. In most of the cases where the courts find that it is used as a facade, the courts are granting relief. So when we come to 311, these are various cases of disciplinary inquiry. Now there are another set of cases, premature retirement by way of administrative action. In the name of doing away with deadwood, the action, administrative action, is taken by throwing away a person, because government may use any phraseology, but the fact remains that a person is thrown out. Premature retirement. There are various rules, civil service rules, which permit such action at the end of, say, when the recruitment age is 45, then 55, 50 or 58 as the case may be. The cases are required to be considered, and on the basis of those considerations, orders of premature retirement. Now there are administrative instructions which mandate the authority to record reasons for retention. Otherwise, the person is required to retire. So retention reasons are required to be recorded. Generally, they are recorded in favor of the employees, because even otherwise, it is only a matter of 2 or 3 years that a person is required to be retained. While taking into consideration the cases, naturally, again, the allegation is that it is only with a view to avoiding the departmental inquiry. This action is punishment, and you please consider my case. There, the Honorable Supreme Court, in number of the cases, have held that maybe some misconduct was committed, there was some action, but if the inquiry is not initiated, it is always open for the government to resort to premature retirement, because this is an administrative action and one gets every terminal benefit. It is not a punishment. Yet another set of cases where the inquiry is dispensed with. Tulsiram Patel's famous judgment, where the railway employees en bloc, their services were terminated by dispensing with the inquiry. the law has traveled a lot thereafter. While recording the reasons, naturally the reasons would be recorded that in these facts 1, 2, 3, 4, it is not possible to hold the departmental inquiry, or that it is not in the interest of the administration to hold the departmental inquiry and to retain this particular person, and therefore it is found necessary that inquiry is dispensed with, and resorting to 311(2), his services are terminated. There are statutory rules which are equivalent to 311(2), dispensing with the departmental inquiry. Now, departmental inquiry is dispensed with again in two cases. One, where a person is convicted of an offense and the termination is based on such conviction. No departmental inquiry is necessary, fair enough. But is it necessary to give an opportunity of hearing to that person when you are terminating the service, dispensing with the inquiry based or the conduct which has led to conviction? There are government instructions. I had contested few cases in which the government came out with a case that when the person is convicted of an offense, meaning thereby which is conduct which has led to a conviction, conviction fact itself is enough, and we need not give any opportunity of hearing to such a person. Straightway, termination order by way of dismissal or removal, discharge, whatever is passed. It is by way of punishment. There are two judgments of Honorable Supreme Court. One, it was cited that a basic compliance with the principles of natural justice is a must. The matter again went to the Honorable Supreme Court, which is the latest judgment, which is of 2015, 8 SCC, 2015, 8 SCC, page 519, Dharampal Satyapal Limited versus Deputy Commissioner of Central Excise, Guwahati and others. The Honorable Supreme Court says that in certain cases, opportunity of hearing may not be necessary, but it is for the court to decide and not for the administration to decide. Administrative authority cannot say that I will not give him opportunity because I don't think it is necessary. Court has to consider whether such an opportunity would be necessary or not. Basing finding on this judgment, ultimately the Honorable Gujarat High Court held in now number of cases that even when there is a conviction, basic opportunity of showing cause has to be given to the delinquent, that is the employee, that as to why punishment of dismissal or removal from service be not imposed on him. The reason behind such show cause notice is again not very far to find out. Punishment must be commensurate with the misconduct. Like it is said that one cannot be hanged for a theft of a needle. Suppose a person is found guilty of the charges under Prevention of Corruption Act, serious misconduct of misappropriation, serious misconduct of insubordination of duty, then maybe dismissal may be ultimately imposed on him based on the reply which he may give to the show cause notice. But suppose he is found guilty of a traffic offense. Suppose he is found guilty of a domestic offense, a fight between two neighbors. A fight between two neighbors gets one color if a person is a regular civil servant working as a peon or a clerk or something, some holding some post in a civil office. But suppose a person is a police constable and there is sufficient evidence to show that he also tried to show his authority on his neighbor, that I am a policeman and I can do wonders to your life. Then again, a different color comes. So everything depends on the misconduct which is committed by him, and therefore right to have a show cause notice is again recognized by the Supreme Court, even when it is a case of conduct which has led to conviction of a person. So we have dealt with these aspects. Now we must consider what is the guarantee or what are the protections given by the courts. Disciplinary authority, we come later on. Inquiry officer must record his findings based on the material on record and must not take into consideration anything which is outside the inquiry. One, he cannot impute his personal knowledge. Two, he cannot take into consideration the material on which the opportunity is not given to the delinquent. These are two basic principles. And if we go through the report of the inquiry officer minutely, there are many cases which we would find out that inquiry officer has either imputed his personal knowledge or that he has taken into consideration extraneous material. Extraneous need not be material which is outside the inquiry. There is certain material which is there on record, but on which there is no opportunity given to the delinquent. And he must not record a finding opinion based. He has to record a finding whether a person is guilty or not. He cannot say that it was expected of him, somebody has done this and he has done this. These are extraneous reasons. You must confine yourself to the misconduct and the findings based on evidence. When the inquiry officer's report comes before the disciplinary authority has to give an opportunity. In that event also, when the delinquent raises the issues in respect of the procedure which is followed by the inquiry officer or the manner in which the findings are recorded, and he raises serious issues, it is incumbent on the disciplinary authority to deal with those contentions. He cannot say that I agree with the findings of the departmental inquiry officer and none of the contentions raised by the delinquent are worth even taking note of. He cannot brush aside them. He has to record positive findings dealing with those contentions. Then comes the appeal. Punishment is imposed. In many cases, departmental appeals are provided. Departmental appellate authority must consider each and every aspect of the appeal which is raised by the delinquent appellant. And generally, the appeals are required to be decided within a reasonable time. In many cases, we have come across that the appeals, more particularly those appeals in the state government or the banks, they take years together. And delay many a times comes in the way of the person getting the final relief. But those cases would depend from facts of each case. They vary. So far as constitutional guarantee is concerned, this judgment which I had said 2015 8 SCC is based on the conviction, and dispensing with the departmental inquiry. The Honorable Supreme Court in 1995 4 SCC page 73 held that the reasons which are recorded by the disciplinary authority for dispensing with the inquiry, they are justiciable. Initially, the trend was that once those reasons are recorded, they are not subject to judicial review. In this judgment 95 4 SCC 73, the Honorable Supreme Court held that these reasons are subject to judicial review, they are justiciable. Suppose a person in whose case the departmental inquiry is dispensed with, on the ground that the witnesses are not available, in respect of the charges leveled against him. Same person is subjected to a criminal case. The witnesses are not only available, but none of the witnesses are declared hostile. Meaning thereby, in criminal case, the witnesses are available. They do come forward to depose against the delinquent. But when it comes to departmental inquiry, the disciplinary authority would find that no, it is not possible to get the witnesses, and therefore I find it necessary to dispense with the inquiry. This cannot be done, meaning thereby such reasons are justiciable, and the court would definitely go into those reasons. And if it finds that it was not a case where the disciplinary authority was justified in dispensing with the inquiry invoking 311(2), then it may grant proper relief to the delinquent. So these are basic framework of the disciplinary proceedings resulting into dismissal, discharge, compulsory retirement or removal. I think we have sufficiently had an overview of the matter. Now, if there is anything which occurs to any of the participants, I think Mr. Chatarath would be grateful to us, or I would be grateful to him, so that he may unmute the participants if anybody has to ask anything. Vikas, would you unmute the participants so they want to ask anything, they can ask?
Yes, sir. Firstly, in fact, the office had muted me also. Therefore, I had to be unmuted somehow. That the staff had gone.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So we have posted the questions only till now. We have got one question, but I feel that the manner in which you have expressed the things, myself, I have been doing practice on the service matter, but it was a fantastic session.
Thank you.
It was lucidly explained, and that to extempore, that only shows the, as we in law they say that in terms of explanation, they say legislation has to be interpreted liberally, and by giving an expansive and an extensive view. And I think the way you have covered it, it shows. Now, suspension order in court.
Please. Suspension order can be challenged. It is not beyond challenge. Suspension, we understand that it is not a punishment. But if we are in a position to justify our challenge based on mala fide, there is one judgment of the Supreme Court which interfered with suspension. I think it was from Tamil Nadu. A gazetted officer.
Chief Secretary V.K. Khanna of Punjab Haryana High Court.
Right.
The judgment was by Justice Jail Gupta, when he said that the state is trying to sledge the fly with the hammer.
Exactly. If we are in a position to allege, substantiate and prove mala fide, which is very difficult, but in certain cases we are able to prove the mala fide. And if we are in a position to establish mala fide, then the suspension also can be challenged, like transfer. Transfer is an incident of service, but there are many cases in which transfers are stayed now. If we are in a position to point out that it is factuated by mala fide, it is only as a measure of victimization that the person is sought to be transferred. Even transfer orders are stayed. Generally, no, but there are cases in which suspension or transfer are stayed. Recently, my case, Dr. R.C. Shah, no doubt it is in appeal and the judgment is stayed. I challenge the suspension order on the ground that the municipal commissioner has no power to suspend a person who is appointed by municipal corporation. He lacks authority to suspend. The learned single judge accepted my contention and set aside the suspension order. So authority of law.
So one of the factors I would like to share, there is another aspect where transfer is being stayed, is that if you are transferred outside the cadre, in 78 Supreme Court, Laburam,
outside cadre, there is unauthorized. I
just wanted, because we have students as well as young lawyers, and some are doing it first time.
I always say that
sometimes you also try to jump as a gun as a moderator also.
I always say that service law is having silver linings. Otherwise, the clouds are always black. the courts, the administration, they are against us. But there are certain cases, अरे भैया ये कौन है वहां पे लुंगी पहन रहे, छोड़ो इनको.
शिव कुमार, वीडियो बंद करो. We would only request the participants that they should maintain the decorum. If they are so busy, they can always close the video. So this question is that a person had been an officer, his services have been terminated without
Yes.
disclosing the cause for the same. But the employer did not take into consideration the fact his services were terminated during probation. And direction had been issued to pass a speaking order. However, the same has not been filed. What is the remedy?
Who has issued the direction to pass a speaking order?
Honorable court.
Meaning the first litigation resulted into this observation
Striking down of the termination order.
and pass a reasoned order.
Yes.
They have not passed the reasoned order.
Yes.
The only thing is
Now,
to
he
revive the
says
petition.
He says a step further. So I filed a case again in the Honorable High Court. But according to me, I am not very sure because it seems to be a personal case. In that eventuality, if the order has been struck down and non-speaking order has been passed, then he would have to go for a contempt. That's my
Again,
take.
either contempt or a fresh petition.
So,
That
but
they have
fresh
not
petition
done it.
that would be only a direction to pass a fresh order. That again would become a, according to my,
Contempt would be a better remedy.
yes, that's my whatever little understanding I have.
No,
it
that
would
is
be
right. Contempt would be a better remedy.
Yes. So, and people have asked for sharing the case law. That I would request you. Then we will post it on a WhatsApp group. The charge sheet issuing authority can become himself as a witness and adduce evidence in the inquiry. Can it be done or not?
That the judgment is very clear. The Honorable Supreme Court says that if a person, he is an officer who had issued charge sheet. There is one case where after issuing the charge sheet, I think he became an appellate authority. He cannot participate in the proceedings, that is certain. Because if he is a person who has issued the charge sheet, I fail to get the question. Can he not be a departmental inquiry officer or a disciplinary
He
officer?
says he cannot be a witness. Can he be a witness?
He cannot be a witness. Witness he certainly cannot be.
On the principles of nobody can be judged in his own case.
Because then he would be interested, having a vested interest in the proceedings itself. Ultimately, he is a person who is issuing charge sheet, meaning thereby he is a disciplinary authority.
So insofar as what you were saying as an appellate authority, he cannot sit as in the appeal. Probably that is
Literally.
2003 Supreme Court, which it says that a person who has passed the order of punishment cannot be the part of that board of directors which decides the appeal. On the same analogy that nobody can be judged in his own case.
In his own case.
Because principally in civil matter, they only rely upon two issues. That number one, nobody can be judged in its own case and nobody can be condemned unheard.
Audi alteram partem, right from A.K. Kaipak.
Yes.
A.K. Kaipak was the fundamental which Justice M.B. Shah, when I started my practice in 1983, he asked me the first question when I went with a matter, service matter. Have you gone through Kaipak? And I looked at him. He said, first of all, go through Kaipak and then come at 245. At that time, the honorable judges were very kind. They used to give us adjournment for preparing. Nowadays, we find that they are not so kind.
So then Beena Pani also of 67 Supreme Court 1268, which says that any civil order vesting, taking away the rights cannot be
Civil
done.
consequences. Civil consequences.
Same,
Civil
67
consequences.
1268, which says that nobody can be judged. No, principles of natural justice, civil right affecting, it
Any
has to be
civil
done.
consequences.
Now, in fact, it has much in the 2019 that Daffodil's judgment says
Yes, yes,
for all matters it has to be done. Daffodils is a classic judgment.
that's right.
Mr. Anand Bhardwaj, a teacher convicted under section 307/326 reaches age of retirement during the pendency of the appeal, can he be terminated after the date of retirement?
Now, this is what we were discussing today only. There is one case of the Honorable Supreme Court which says that he can be dismissed from service. I have forgotten the citation right now because I had used it in one case. I was appearing for the High Court and I had cited that. There was one bank officer whose services were terminated by way of a dismissal.
UCO Bank versus Cooner.
Yes. Dismissal would have a prospective effect from the date of his superannuation.
UCO Bank versus it should be RC Cooner, I suppose.
Yes. That's the one. The reason why the Supreme Court did it was he was involved in a very, very serious misconduct. This is one case which has resulted into a hard case laying down that law. His services
but I
Yes.
think law, according to us, what you are saying is, because I am also somewhat student of law and now we are exchanging the issues, irrespective that you were a speaker at that point of time. But whatever little understanding I have is
Please,
it was also dependent upon the rules which govern the conditions of service.
correct.
Like
No,
Mr. Anand Bhardwaj is a lawyer from Punjab Haryana High Court. What he's
Yes.
talking, I can just explain to Anand that Rule 2.2 says, in that eventuality, master servantship cannot come to an end because there is a severance, and your pension can be reduced, and that too
Correct.
up to one.
So all these rules, Vikas, they empower the disciplinary authority to continue the person beyond the age of superannuation for the limited
Anand
purpose
is
of
asking,
completing the departmental inquiry.
Sir,
Similar
Anand
rule.
Bhardwaj is asking, I know that because in Punjab Civil Service Rules and as adopted in Haryana, there is
Yes.
no provision. In bank cases, yes, it is there. And number two, Anand is speaking because I know he's from Haryana,
Yes.
our High Court. The only difference is, let's assume there is no pension and he
In
stands
absence of
retired.
rules, no.
Yes.
In absence of rules, no.
And again, once there is no pension scheme also, then there is also a straightaway severance of relationship, according to me.
Now
It's
there
a
are two things:
non-pensionable.
pension or provident fund. Provident fund and gratuity. Pension includes gratuity, that is the rule. But so far as central civil service rules are concerned, I think FR 57 and Gujarat, there is rule 24 of the pension rules. Initially, it was rule 189A in the under the Bombay Civil Services rules, which empowered the government to continue a person beyond the age of superannuation, and he would be continued for the limited purpose of completing the departmental inquiry. So
Under deeming of law.
it would always result into withholding of full or partial pension. But this case which we discussed right now, the bank had a similar rule. The Supreme Court interpreted that if his services are deemed to have been continued for the purpose of completing the departmental inquiry, for that purpose he would continue. But when it comes to dismissing him from service, it would have a prospective effect, meaning thereby from the date of his reaching the age of superannuation, he would be deemed to have been dismissed from service, depriving him of the terminal benefits.
Yes. Because in certain rules, like
Bank-
what
bank-
I gather is in certain bank, no, in certain bank cases also they say that once is over, then even the departmental proceedings will be considered to be lapsed.
Correct. There
In
are
the case of
rules.
officers, they say yes, it is deemed to be lapsed. In certain cases, they say no, you can continue.
So
So it all
again,
depends
on the rules,
strictly on the rules.
statutory
And that is
provisions.
why we say that judgments are not statutes. Each statute has to be read for the purposes of judgment.
Correct. That's absolutely right. Like I had to argue one case that a person was subjected to a charge sheet after 4 years. In Gujarat, there are rules which permit that it cannot be more than 4 years old from the date of issuance of the charge sheet, and that too with the previous sanction of the governor. The charges were very, very serious, and the judge was wild at me. But I had to say that, sir, please read Navjot Singh Sidhu. We have to interpret the law as it is and not as it should be. If the law says that it cannot be done, forget about it. It cannot be done. Ultimately, I succeeded. But
Again, Tata Chemical also says that. Tata Chemical 2015 also says, relying upon Chandra Jha, which says that If the rule contemplates a particular manner, it has to be done only in that
It has
manner and
to
no
be done
other.
in that manner or not at all, right from 36 Privy Council.
Yes. In election law, this is used very much.
Continuously.
Election law and a tax matter, it is used a lot.
Privy Council said it in 36 and it is consistently being followed.
And one is saying the retrospective termination of a friend of ours has posted. There can be no retrospective termination. Whether there can be retrospective termination, because what is your take?
As I said, it all depends on the rules and the interpretation by the court. Like UCO Bank, the Honorable Supreme Court interpreted the rule that if the rules permit continuation of the departmental proceedings beyond the age of superannuation, there can always be an order of dismissal, but it would have an prospective effect from the date of reaching the date of superannuation, and it will not have a retrospective effect of the date of issuance of the charge sheet. So there is no retroactivity, I would say. It becomes prospective.
Doctrine of severability.
Yes.
Kakali Chatterjee, what is the remedy to a public servant who was dismissed from service for having criminal case against him? But at the age of 62 years, judgment came that he is not guilty of in the criminal case.
If he is already held guilty in the departmental proceedings, subsequent acquittal is of no consequence. That is the consistent view by the Honorable Supreme Court. Departmental inquiry concluded, person dismissed from service, subsequent acquittal has no effect because the standard of proof is different in both the cases.
Kalki, you can read that Captain M. Paul Anthony, 1999 Supreme Court.
And subsequently, the Honorable Supreme Court in State Bank's case said that you wait for 1 year. If the criminal proceeding is not over, go ahead with the departmental proceedings. Don't wait any further. That is the latest. Wait for only 1 year.
Yes. Now, this is by C.K. Chandrasekhar on the Facebook. He
Yes.
says where there is power to retain in service, termination is possible. If severance has taken place and rules do not provide, he has given us the citation, SBI versus A.N. Gupta. That's what I told, that in an officer's case, they say you can't proceed, but in the cases of an employee in SBI, they say no.
It all depends on the rules.
Yes.
If the rules don't permit, then you have to forget about whatever misconduct.
He now C.K. Chandrasekhar again on Facebook post.
Yes.
The theory of bias alone is the best defense after P.D. Dinakaran and Colonel B.N. Jha case. But it must be pleaded and probable view must be established.
Bias is very difficult to establish. There are two judgments on the question of bias. Reasonable apprehension of a bias. An officer or counsel of the employer in past cannot act as an inquiry officer. That is 2010 5 SCC 549. If a person was representing the establishment as a lawyer before the say industrial tribunal, labor court or the high court, he cannot act as an inquiry officer.
This is same knowledge. Nobody can be a judge in his own case.
Exactly, same principle. Because he has a bias. The bias can be positive, bias can be negative, both.
And another principle, they would also say that justice must not only be done and also seem to be done. Even let's assume there is no bias on that analogy.
These are golden letters which look very good in the textbooks.
That's true. Parveen say this is, can a private company straight away terminate the services of an employee without showing any reasons? This is by Srinivas.
Union UPSC versus Jayantilal Waghela is an answer to all such questions. Private employment stands on a different footing than the public employment. There is no 311 in private employment.
For subtle difference, he can also examine Uptron India versus Shami Bhan 1998 Supreme Court. Service matter is slightly, I also enjoy service matter, therefore it's not an issue.
There is one judgment of the Supreme Court, which is that 85 Supreme Court, J something. His name was struck off from the service roll because of the continued absence, the Supreme Court held that even in case of a private action, reasonableness can be examined.
98 Supreme Court Shammi Bhan, which contemplated the standing orders contained that after 2 days absence you could terminate the service. They said it is a draconian law. That such standing orders, even if you have signed standing orders, even if they have a consent.
Private action subject to judicial review. Private action. That was some J something. Private action. I had written down somewhere, but
I could gauge that you have that indexed book, which
yes.
normally nowadays people believe in the computerization. What you said in the first brush that you are not computer savvy. I am one lawyer who is stuck between the two.
I rely more on my book rather than computer. Article 14 can be read into private action. That's what the Honorable Supreme Court said in that judgment. Now, when it comes to the question in relation to the teacher, I was really surprised when the Honorable Supreme Court appointed the most famous lawyer in the case of that lady. She married 2018 1 SCC. Education is a public function, and all education, that RSM University is a state and education is a public function. So all these private universities, private educational institutes, they are now, their actions are subject to judicial review. Yes, they are.
And some also after TMFI.
No, TMFI is old one, but there was a fluid situation in respect of the private colleges and private universities. They were always taking a stand that we are private employers. The Honorable Supreme Court in a recent case, 2018 1 SCC, I have forgotten the citation. I recently cited it. That it is a state within the meaning of Article 12, and all educational institutions, their action. Yes, this is what I was referring to. 1993 3 SCC, page 259, DK Yadav versus JMA Industries. Article 14 can be read into even private action. Solitary judgment.
Yes. This was relied upon in this judgment of Apron India versus Shammi Bhan.
Yes.
And whether it will be a public function.
No, this was a pure private action. Article 14 was read into it. A sole case. But this Mary Fernandez or some teacher of Kerala, where the Honorable
just asked the citation. Mr. K.S. Khan is asking the citation of the Yadav.
It is
1993 Supreme Court.
1995 1 SCC.
We will be sharing the judgments after having the list of the judgments from.
No, I send you, certainly. You
so
can
those
share
who are
it.
in our group, we will share it.
I'll
just post it.
Certainly.
I will just post it on the for webinars and the notes we invariably post. So this is by the inquiry of proceeding started in 2015. Final submissions were submitted by the inquiry officer in 2018. And till date, there is no response of the inquiry committee. Any procedure to be followed with regard to the same, 3 reminders have already been done, no response till date.
Only remedy is to file a petition and get a direction. We also know that it's only a formality, but we have to do it. Get a direction to complete the inquiry proceeding within a stipulated time. The moment you do it, you should be certain of the fate, that it will go against you. If you compel somebody to do something in a hurry, you are bound to suffer. I generally don't advise my clients to do it. Expedite the proceedings against us.
One has raised the hand, we will unmute him. Ranjit Parekh. So one of the judgments, where they of late recently the judgment came by probably Justice Vikram Sen, which said that if the charge sheet is not presented within a period of 3 months, in that eventuality you can be reinstated.
No, that I tell you, suspension. Now there are rules. One, charge sheet have to be submitted within a period of 90 days, or on 89th or 90th day, you must review the suspension, record the reasons, and extend it to a further period of 90 days as the rules permit. In Gujarat Civil Service rules, there are rules to the specific effect. Central Civil Service rules are also having that specific effect. Even after submission of the charge sheet, you have to complete the inquiry within a stipulated time. If you don't do it, review the suspension order within a period of 90 days, or on 91st day, the suspension order is deemed to have been revoked. It doesn't.
That is the judgment by Justice Vikram Sen.
That's right.
Interpret
those rules.
It is by Sunil Mehta. If a departmental inquiry / charge sheet has been framed on an infructuous certified standing order, would the charge sheet be valid? The inquiry report committee knows about it, but still wants to continue with the inquiry reports. How should the charge sheet employed go about it, if any case laws for the same?
If the charge sheet is based on something which does not exist, meaning thereby the charge sheet is unauthorized, you can always go to the court of law, file a petition and challenge it for lack of authority, because the Supreme Court, there is one judgment which says that if there is lack of authority, you can always challenge even the charge sheet. In one case which I represented High Court, before the High Court itself, there was a judicial officer who was subjected to a proceeding, and the Honorable High Court set aside the charge sheet, and the inquiry was also set aside only on this ground, that it was unauthorized. The allegations were not filed on affidavit, and if the affidavits are not there, then the allegations cannot be gone into, and the Honorable Supreme Court, based on those findings, Vishakha and all those judgments, the Honorable Court set aside the inquiry and the charge sheet both.
Mr. Prasad, we have unmuted. You can ask the questions.
Sir, good evening, sir. Hello, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Prasad, you are audible.
Sir, good evening, sir. Sir, please advise me what should I do when the opponent is not filing the counter affidavit, even after 2 years of filing the case in the Honorable High Court, sir.
It all depends on the Honorable Judge, how he takes up. Because this is a common problem, I think, all over India.
Sir.
The respondent state doesn't file affidavit, goes on asking for time. The Honorable Courts are granting time.
Sir.
As such, so far as the reported cases are concerned, there is no remedy. It is all dependent on the stand taken by your counsel, meaning thereby you and the views of the Honorable Judge, who either strikes out the defense or gives some stipulated time to do it.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Most welcome.
Sir, one of the participants on the Facebook,
yes,
perchance I have also not read, he says that DK Yadav has been followed in Lakshmi Precisions Limited.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'll note it down.
Yeah, he says
my diary would be enriched to that extent.
That's what we say, that
I am a student.
We all are. We also say that we are all just like pollen grains, from one pollen to another to grow a better nursery of better flowers. That's what the intent is.
And the day we don't treat us as a student, that's an end of the life.
No, that's for sure. And so this is by Kumar Vaisran, Rangoon. Why is that department inquiries strict adherence to CRPC and Indian Evidence Acts are not followed, but the punishments are awarded are more serious than penal codes, including removal and dismissal? Why is the departmental inquiry the presenting officer should not be a law practitioner?
The principles of departmental inquiry is that it is an internal machinery to find out whether to retain a person or not. No doubt, the results, as late Honorable Mr. Justice Thakkar said, that when you dismiss a person, it is an economic death not only for him but for his family as well. As you rightly said, the punishment is severe, and it is not only to the person but to the whole family. But the courts have taken the view that the standard of proof in the departmental proceedings and criminal proceedings are absolutely different. I always say that this phrase preponderance of probabilities, it is adopted in the departmental proceedings, meaning thereby if 3 persons say that I am bad, departmental inquiry officer has to believe that I am bad. That is preponderance of probability.
But there is one judgment, sir. I will also check it on my register.
Yes.
There's only one judgment which I have been able to lay hand, which said that since it is a judgment by magistrate, etc., that is the only exception which I find. They said that it should be given more credence to an inquiry conducted by an officer, by an inquiry officer of the department itself or someone else. His second question was, why is the department inquiry the presenting officer should not be a law practitioner?
Because it's an internal departmental machinery. The moment you permit law practitioner to become an inquiry officer, you have to permit the delinquent to be represented by a lawyer. Department will also be represented by legal practitioner. Then the courts are transported to the internal departmental machinery, which is not generally approved by the Supreme Court. There is only one judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court, again from Gujarat. The person was held to be guilty of having assets disproportionate to the known sources of income. And when he was acquitted in the criminal case, the Honorable Supreme Court says that you cannot record contrary findings, and in the basis of on the same charge, you cannot hold him guilty. There is only one judgment.
Probably G.K. Tank.
Yeah, G.K. Tank. I always forget that name. I
G.K.
always relate him to that Tonk in Rajasthan so that I can remember.
Now I was saying that there's one judgment. Now once you said it's from Gujarat, I recollected immediately that is G.K. Tank, which is the only
GM Tank. GM Tank.
judgment.
GM Tank.
GM Tank. Yes, GM Tank.
That is the only judgment.
Yes. So it's one of my subjects. That's why I'm saying invariably I don't participate to that extent, but this is a judgment you actually enjoy the.
When you cite judgments as if they are on the tip of your tongue, I always remember two honorable judges. One was Justice C.K. Thakkar and another Justice J.M. Panchal. When we were practicing as young lawyers in 83, 84, we would rush to them. We would ask them.
You are still young. You are still very young.
I am 60. So
it doesn't matter. They say age is only in the mind. You are still young as long as you are vibrant, etc.
We used to ask them, and all judgments were on the tip of their tongue. Still they are.
In fact, Justice Singhvi, while he was here, he could cite any amount of judgments off the cuff, including page number.
Correct. I have very high regards for Justice Singhvi. He was in Gujarat High Court for a few months. Had he remained here, we would have been really grateful.
But you would have seen that he could remember the judgments of the cuff.
Absolutely.
And while dictating judgments, he could say comma, full stop, next para, without even a pause.
And one judgment which I was arguing a matter against the High Court, and he told me that find out one judgment of Jabalpur bench, that individual decision versus corporate decision. When there is a corporate decision, you cannot allege mala fide. He told me to go to library and I could find out that there is no mala fide when there is a corporate decision. If it is a full court decision, you cannot allege mala fide. That's what he was driving at. And I could find out that judgment of Jabalpur bench of Madhya Pradesh High Court. He had that judgment in mind and he made me work for it. It was naturally against me, but he told me that you do it maybe it's against you, but you have to find out.
That was good. Another, since there are a large number of young participants, could you just substantiate on malice in fact and malafide in law?
Malice in fact, something based on factual aspects is malice in fact. What is malice in law? Say a person does not have authority, the one which we had discussed right now, that there are standing orders which are not in existence. They are specifically repealed. An act which is specifically repealed, rules which are specifically repealed or replaced, and some action is taken based on that. That is mala fide in law. People generally mix up between two words. Mala fide means bad intention, not necessarily bad intention. Mala fide in law is lacking bona fide. If law doesn't permit something to be done, like Mr. Vikas stated, that if a thing is required to be done in a particular manner, it has to be done in that manner or not at all. If you do it, it is malice in law. You know that this law does not exist. Since in spite of that, you insist that no, I would do it. Suppose, what is malice in law? I'll just illustrate. Law says, Yoginath Bagde says, that if you disagree with the findings, you have to record tentative reasons and call upon the delinquent to make representation on that. Para 34 or 35 of Yoginath Bagde. Inquiry officer records a finding exonerating the delinquent. Disciplinary authority knows that he cannot do it. In spite of that, he issues a show cause notice as to recording the not only finding of guilt, but calling upon the delinquent as to why the person should not be dismissed from service. This is a composite show cause notice. It suffers from malice in law because law mandates that he must record tentative findings first, call upon the delinquent. If the delinquent fails to give reasonable or good explanation, he can proceed with the imposition of punishment. He cannot do it simultaneously. When you allege, you can say that, sir, this action suffers from mala fide in law. Mala fide in fact, husband does something, wife is working under an ex-officer, and because of the deeds of wife or husband, action is taken against either of them. That is mala fide in fact, and you can allege, and if it is possible to prove them, you can prove it. Mala fide in fact are very difficult to be proved. Mala fide in law, easier to prove if there is sufficient ground.
Easy. I don't think now we are there. Questions? Gratitude by CK Chandrasekhar, who has posted a lot of judgments on the Facebook itself for all of us. And the notes, as Mr. Gautam Joshi has said, that the judgments which we have been cited today, he will share with us. So I'm posting the WhatsApp number of Beyond Law CLC. Sir Ali, as I say before you part, we all always have the last parting shot. He says, Ali, can we as public agreed by police abuse of powers challenge the use of transferring as punishment by police force, since transfer is not actually punishing the police who is abusing their authority? Can we ask court to direct the police to give more serious punishment?
Doesn't come. Simple answer, doesn't come under 311. मेरे पेपर के बाहर का है.
Otherwise also.
आज के syllabus, it's not in today's syllabus.
Even otherwise.
General debate. This is a point of general debate.
It's a in law, and otherwise we say it's a wishful wish.
Correct.
What
correct.
Shakespeare said, that there are certain wishful wishes which are good on the mental brain work, but it actually doesn't transfer.
I don't have a WhatsApp, but these are like those wishes that come in the morning on WhatsApp. Wishing you a very
Yes.
good day, very good morning, rosy day, flower day, and all those things.
The last question, Srinivasan, he says, we will not be taking any question thereafter. Srinivasan Mulkuni says, what is the subtle difference between what is the subtle distinction between dismissal, removal, and termination?
You name the gold by any name, the resultant effect is going out of the establishment. Insofar as the government is concerned, there is no such difference. But there are certain banks which distinguish between these different kinds of terminations. Certain terminations do entail terminal benefits. Certain dismissal, they do not entail terminal benefits. Compulsory retirement in certain banks do entail terminal benefits. Otherwise, in civil service, compulsory retirement does not entail terminal benefits, as I said. So, in certain rules, those statutory regulations, different kind of terminations entail different kind of effect on the terminal benefits. There, those use of the words would make a difference. Otherwise, as we discussed, so far as the civil services are concerned, suppose you write in the removal that it will not come as a hindrance or obstacle in getting a fresh employment. Even otherwise, there are 1,000 lakhs of people waiting for employment. Why should somebody employ a person with a tainted background? They would not. It is only just good words being used.
So in our cases, Now High Court termination invariably has been used for the purposes who are temporary employees or a person who is on probation. And for removal, invariably, removal also carries in our High Court Punjab and Haryana rules. It says removal could be where you can, like State Bank of India, it could be removal with superannuation benefits. And the judgment of the Supreme Court.
That's what I said. That it all depends on the statutory rules. Many banks have these rules: removal with terminal benefits, dismissal without terminal benefits, compulsory retirement with all benefits. Even by way of punishment, they impose compulsory retirement with all terminal benefits. But
so
these are the
compulsory retirement is also of two types. One is as a major punishment, and one is on weeding out the deadwood.
Deadwood.
Deadwood would be entitled for a pension.
They would be.
Punjab and High Court, they have two distinctions.
No, they go out with all terminal benefits because it is an administrative action, not treated as a punishment.
Yes. So as we had, once we had taken the, asked you to come on the platform, we said that we would be quite sacrosanct that we would be actually be imbibing knowledge. Needless to add that, in fact, we have added knowledge to whatever, as a student of law, we knew the knowledge. And whatever chat we have received on the right side chat box as well as the Facebook, people are immensely happy the way you elucidated the entire issues, and that too non-stop in a 45-50 minutes run, covering the entire gamut. At least who are listening for the first time, they can get the good insights. And those persons like us, it is just like you may have the axe or a knife, but unless you don't sharpen it up, it will go to it will start giving that sharpness. For all those people like us, some skills, not full skills, because they say that you always have to learn everything, but some skills at the back of the mind, one feels that yes, people like us have also somewhat learned. But I can vouch upon that participants who are listening for the first time, or they have some reasonable practice on the service matter, they would be definitely be enriched by the insights given by you. Tomorrow again, sir, from your platform, that is from Gujarat High Court, we have Mr. Dhaval Dhave, the senior advocate. and he would be speaking on the rights and obligation of self-financing educational institutions. The
It is his
judicial
forte.
subject.
It is
Yes,
his forte.
So we invariably, the entire endeavor is that we try to request speakers pan-India who are known for their immense knowledge, and whomsoever who had talked on this aspects of self-financing education, the only one name in fact came out that you should chip in Mr. Dhaval Dhave. And when I was speaking to him in the morning while we were talking and finalizing the topic, the manner in which we were doing, I told him that the manner in which you are actually discussing the issues, I'm quite sacrosanct that the knowledge and of everyone would be there, because he's a very erudite speaker. And in fact, Mr. Pandya came, Mr. C.K. Thakur came, then yourself. We have all been enriched when people from Gujarat are coming. And that is why they say that the Gujarat is leading India. And we can also understand that why this platform is helping us to do better. It's not that I'm saying... Pardon, sir?
Because I tell you, if you hear Dhaval on this aspect, self-finance colleges and institutes, and various aspects, he has mastered this subject. It will be a real treat to hear him on this. Mark my words.
So, sir, in the morning I said, though I'm going off the cuff, I said, sir, he said, is it a finalized topic or should I change the topic? I said, sir, trailer hi acha hai, picture to achhi hoegi. We will go ahead. So everyone who has remained connected with Beyond Law CLC and with the speakers of immense knowledge like Mr. Gautam Joshi, everyone stay safe, stay healthy, do stay connected with us. All our sessions are uploaded not only on the Facebook page of Beyond Law CLC, as well as our own channel, Beyond Law CLC. You can share, like, and subscribe to that. Any previous sessions which we have done so far, they have been all uploaded on the YouTube channel. You can all share and you can have a peep of that. Thank you, everyone. And
thank you very much.
We are all actually, as they say that Gautam Buddha gave the knowledge, I can say Mr. Gautam Joshi not only gave us the josh, but also gave us the knowledge to enjoy for all times to come. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.